There we go. Okay, so hi everyone. Today we are opening a new episode of the With Founders series where we invite founders from well known Swiss startups and tech companies. And yeah, today we're having Michael Wüst as our guest. So hi, Michael. I'm super happy to have you join us.
Thanks a lot. Happy to be here today. It's great. Thanks for the invite.
Awesome. So I wanted to kick things off by you introducing yourself and tell us about who is Michael today and who you were before building amnis.
Okay, good question. I assume I'm still the same person. I think it's quite an important topic, but before amnis, after graduating, I worked for a large cap in the treasury department. I even worked for banks for a few years in the wealth management, portfolio management space. What I was always is a very analytical person. But speaking about myself as a person, not about my professional career, I think I'm still the same person as before Amnis. And for now, I have a great family with 2 kids and happy how everything fits together.
Okay, great. And I guess you used to work like in corporate and then you switched to the entrepreneurial path, I would say. And I always wonder, like, when you see these great careers and successful stories, uh, did you always, like want to be or build something on your own, or did the idea sneak up on you as you started seeing that there was a batch, I would say, in the industry, a necessity that you thought you could solve?
I've always had an entrepreneurial mindset. Even in my family, my father also operated a small business. So for me to do something entrepreneurial was always a topic or an aspiration. I also at a younger age, I helped out in the company of my father delivering things or doing stuff very hands-on. Then after a few years in a corporate career, I thought now it's time for change. Yeah, the main question is how we realize when to start something. For me, this was kind of a natural thing because we saw the opportunity. Now we could do something also with the 2 co-founders. So we were 3 at the beginning or still are. And there, it was opportunity driven because we thought, okay, now SMEs are overcharged and we should change something in the SME banking market.
Okay, so basically you saw the problem and that's when you said, like, this is our moment to go ahead.
Yeah,
What
and
was it?
yeah,
Go ahead, sorry.
and we saw the problem because working for large caps. So in my example, my former employer had more than 400 subsidiaries. At the end of the day, these subsidiaries were all small business or mid caps, and these mid caps had advantages compared to enterprises because they were part of a group. And so we thought, okay, if these subsidiaries of large caps have access to treasury tools, competitive rates, and other topics, what could we do to enable all the companies out there to bank better? And so it was, in this sense, opportunity driven.
Okay. Yeah, that's great. And I think like sometimes having that like professional path in corporate always enables you to actually have a great look at the industry. And I guess that combined with your family business and everything like was the a great combination to follow like an entrepreneurial path. And I was going to ask you when you first sensed it like this necessity, I guess, did you have in mind what Avnis is today? You thought the product that's something super small, and I don't know, like what was the product that you had in mind when you thought about solving the problem that you saw?
Yeah, also quite an interesting question. If I think back, we always had the idea of building a platform business or something big. However, when we started, at the end of the day, we started with kind of a one-trick pony. So we saw, okay, currency exchange, it's something that you can change quite fast or build something quite fast. Coming back to your question, I never thought that we have a transaction banking platform when we incorporated Amnis a few years later. So yeah, it was kind of a natural development. One thing to add here. I also do it as how do you say it in English? I started at working for a bank at the age of 16 for 3 years. And so there it was a really small bank. And already there I always thought, hey, this bank, someone should do it different. That's not how it should work. And so we thought big, and I thought really big. But at the end, when you start, you think step by step. You need to find a revenue model, and for us, this one trick pony with currency exchange was a good starting point.
Yeah, and I guess I really like what you have just said about having worked maybe at a smaller company when you were younger, because when you work in corporate and then you try to build something on your own, you realize that it's a lot harder than maybe what you thought it would be, and you have like a trillion problems to solve or things to build from scratch. And I think that's one of the toughest parts about being an entrepreneur and building your own thing, is that maybe you're not used to doing all that other part which comes with building something from zero. So I
Yeah.
guess, were there any moments when you started where you thought like, oh my god, like where have I put myself into, or I'm not sure, like how was that process of scaling and building something?
I mean, we realized quite at the beginning, hey, the world is not waiting for you. No
Yeah.
one waits for a new solution. So the toughest thing there was, oh my God, how do we ensure that people know about us? How do we ensure that entrepreneurs know about amnis as a solution for their pains or for their problems? So there we learned quite a lot. I learned quite a lot because basically I was mainly a finance guy with an entrepreneurial mindset. And so I learned a lot about sales, marketing. And at the end of the day, we found ways to solve these pains or these issues. Yeah.
Okay. So following like these early stages of amnis, you decided you wanted to solve a problem, you started the company and everything. I guess there should have been a point where you started seeing that things started to scale, because you have like the very beginning is a bit tough. You don't see anything happening, and maybe you don't actually have like a product market fit, and then things start to move fast, when you find what is working specifically. And that also comes with a lot of struggles, because you start to, you have a need for resources, you need to hire more people, bring people on, you need money to scale. So I want to ask you, like, how was that process for you? I don't know, tell us a bit about that part of the journey, which is super interesting.
Yeah. I mean, the Amnis, we went quite a different way because we were not externally financed at the beginning. So we financed our venture at the beginning by just paying no salaries to the founders. So this was quite tough. So really tough. And then you have these stages. We started with some clients. We call them friends of Amnis at the beginning. And then after 1 year, we had kind of a launch with the next 100 customers. After 3 years, we were at 500 customers, and then we realized, okay, now we have issues with resources. We need to hire people. Then came the next stage when we realized, hey, Switzerland is quite small. We need to go to a bigger market. So we needed to raise funds to get a European license. We did so. So we did our seed round after, I think, 4 years, 4.5 years.
Wow.
So not at the beginning. And we basically used these funds to get a license and to start business in Europe, so to expand into Europe. Then the next topic was, hey, we need to leverage what we already have and add additional product capabilities like a card program, more local IBANs in different jurisdictions. And to do so, we needed additional funds and also team members. So this was kind of our series to get this expansion funded and add new products. This round was more. Now we have a great product. We have a product market fit. I mean, the last 4 months, we onboarded more than 1,000 companies. So we grow fast. And so this round was to scale on what we already have. And in that sense, this was the most natural one because we have the matrix, we know what we can do and how to scale. But in between, there were a lot of learnings. I would have done
Okay.
a lot of things different if I think back.
Okay, I have a trillion questions from what you have just said, so I'll start from the first couple of ones. So the first one that I have is, you said like at the beginning you decided not to leverage any external capital, and we discussed that you had like a very analytic, you are like a finance guy, I would say. Was it something like conscious that you decided not to do, or was it something natural? Because I always wonder like if founders actually sit down at the beginning and think consciously about what they want to do in the long term. And I know it's difficult because you don't even know what will happen like a year from that moment. And so I don't know, like with that background that you had, wasn't something conscious, or I don't know, you decided as things started to move forward.
Yeah. I mean, thinking about it now for the first time, I would say it was kind of a lack of experience. Because, to be really honest, because when you
Yeah, it's
start a
good.
business, obviously everyone knows, hey, you need to generate revenue, you need to grow, you need to do that. But we were not really into the venture capital market, nor in the debt market as a newly incorporated company. So we just started and we thought, okay, with first 20, 30 clients, we generate this revenue. So we had a clear business model. And then at the end, it always takes longer than you think. So
Yeah.
the good thing about that way was that the founders, at the end of the day, learned quite a lot during this time. We know every single detail of the platform, the application of the processes. This is kind of different. Would I do it the same way again? No, no way. If knowing what I know now, I would just start fundraising at day one. The reason why is you can save, I would say, 2 or 3 years at the end. So we kind of lost 2 or 3 years, but we learned a lot. So maybe it's balanced.
Yeah, and I guess like without having like any external capital, I would say from the beginning, I mean, you had to do all by yourself, and like that also is a great experience, I would say, from the knowledge standpoint. Like you learn everything and you don't have like a lot of money to spend, and I don't know, hiring a lot of
Yeah.
people or scaling the product super fast. And I guess that that can be a great opportunity for actually saying like, well, where is the product going? Like, where is the product going? Is there a product market fit, or we have to do things by ourselves? When I don't know, in other scenario, maybe you would hire someone else. And I guess that in the long term, is a great learning experience.
I also think that it pays off. I mean, starting completely bootstrapped has also a lot of advantages, but in our case, I even learned how to code. So a part of the code base of the initial platform, meanwhile, our CTO, which is way better than I am in coding, refactored everything. But this experience now still helps if I discuss with a big sales meeting about how to structure the API. I exactly know how to do it, and this is a kind of an advantage. If you would have done it different, then maybe the DNA of amnis would be different.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess how you as a founder are now today maybe would have changed, because I feel like sometimes you end up being a bit disconnected from the product itself, or like all of the areas within the company. And maybe you having done all of those things at the beginning now enables you to understand everything as, I don't know, something as little as an API. So I think that's something great. I also think that you took a huge risk at the beginning because, as you said, you were not having salaries at that time. I guess, of course, you were younger and everything, but I want to ask you, how was that process for you, like taking that huge risk, coming from like you know, a super stable corporate professional path? And I guess you must have been super convinced of what you were doing, or I don't know, what did you have in mind?
I was super convinced that we will succeed with this venture for sure. However, I mean, my first child was born 12 months after we started this business. So I was a bit thinking, okay, now, Mike, you have to be really, really successful to make this happen. Otherwise, this decision was wrong. It was the only time I really thought about it. Because afterwards, if you realize, okay, you get more and more customers, your product market fit is improving, then I'm not the person that is looking back. So but I think if you think it through from a risk point of view, you should not do it that way for sure.
Okay, so you have to start and never look back.
Yeah, as at least for me, it's the right thing. Otherwise, yeah, well, will not work. But
Okay,
this
and
was in early times. Now it's a different company, it's different
of
risk
course.
culture, different decision process, so you cannot compare it.
Okay, and going back a bit to what we were just saying, I wonder like were your co-founders and the people around you at the time, was it hard to get everyone on board with the decisions about, I don't know, not getting alternative or funding from VCs or well debt or whatever? Was everyone on board with bootstrapping, and how did that process for everyone to have the same kind of like vision for the future was like? Where all of you did all of you agree on what to do, or I don't know, you have a finance background, so I guess maybe you have a different perception. How was that process?
Yeah. I mean, we were kind of like-minded in this decision. What I need to say is one of the co-founders was more into operations and another one more into process design. At the end, to set the strategy together was kind of easy because you just developed the company step by step. We don't, as mentioned, I think 20 minutes ago, we did not think that, hey, now we built this platform with all this complexity. We just started with the first step, built it, and then took it from there. And so it was quite kind of evolving, and we had a lot of passion. All the founders still have, and it worked out fine.
Okay. And so now you decided to actually get your first seed round, I would say. What year was that?
The seed round, this was in the year 2020.
Okay, so a bit far along the way, I guess, like mid through the journey. So at that time, you had like a more well-grown, I would say, company. You had product market fit and everything. Like, how did you deal with scaling? Because I know you have grown a lot over the past few years, and that comes with a lot of struggles, I would say, like from professionalizing the platform, actually burning more money because you're having a more developed product and everything, and having new people on board, like hiring people, building a culture and something that's super different from being, I don't know, a small company with your co-founders and everything that you know them super well. So yeah, how was that second part of the funding journey?
Yeah, I mean, let me think about it. After the first funding round, the team was still pretty small. We were 10, 12 people after the round. So if you lead by example as a CEO, but also as a CFO, COO, and CTO all together, then it's pretty easy to have a common view on topics, to have a culture. You're more a family than a company because everyone strives for the same goals. Then when the company grows with basically also with every financing round, you have more and more people and you need to really manage this and to ensure that you have a culture. However, the culture, it's more like a startup culture. So in this sense, everyone that joins Amnis has already the mindset of building something. So we have a lot of people that also believe in our vision, and this really helps to have a kind of a special culture and uh, work enthusiasm to work.
Was it difficult for you to like find that kind of profile? Because I guess sometimes it's like when you have like that sense of family within, you know, the company and it's a bit smaller, and
Yeah.
then you start having people, new employees, and you start hiring. Sometimes it's difficult to preserve that culture from the beginning and also transmit that onto new people who are joining, who you never met before and they're basically strangers. Do you think it changed a lot since 2020 up to now? And I don't know, were you able to pass on that to the culture that is happening today, or how did that evolve?
For sure, it changed a lot. I mean, you cannot preserve the culture of a 5-man or 10-man company to 50 or 100 employees, in my opinion. Because if you're a very small team, you can even have a beer every evening, or I mean, cut this out. Not every evening, but a weekly beer together. As soon as you are more and have offices in various countries, this is basically not possible. So The culture then is more about an understanding of what are the goals together and what we want to achieve. What we still do and what helps us to build a common culture is get-togethers. We have IT get-together. We have a company get-togethers. The company get-together, we do one big one every year in a different city in Europe, and this really helps to align everyone. And during the year, we have more department get-togethers, and yeah, for to do it, the leadership team, obviously. Does this answer your question?
Yeah, it does. And I guess another thing that I was going to mention is that apart from the culture and having that family sense, which I think is great because, people like to feel like they are part of something. It's also the startup culture, I would say, that, you feel like you're being part of something and that you are building something and that your work has actually impact on the company. And I guess that's something super important that gets people and young people, I'm talking for myself, super motivated. And sometimes that's what makes you choose working at a smaller company than, following a corporate path. I guess it's not for everyone, but I think it's great to preserve that DNA, I would say,
And
of
this is
the
this
very
is
beginning.
exactly. Oh, sorry. This is exactly the point. I mean, you can really. Everyone can contribute to the success, to the product, to amnis as a company. And if you work for a large cap, you can also contribute maybe to your team. Maybe you can contribute more if you are in the middle management. I hope so. But at amnis, also new joiners right from the beginning can keep up and bring in their thoughts and help us to go in the right direction with ideas. I mean, we have a culture where there are no bad ideas, and also it's all about just execute things. We need to adapt things a lot, obviously, as every company, and we do mistakes. However, it's more important, in my opinion, that people just start contributing, do some things, and then at the end, it might be wrong, but it's a learning. Do it better next time and go ahead. And this is still kind of our culture. And back to the discussion before, that's also how we built the company at the beginning. I mean, we were a bit slower maybe because we did it that way, but we learned a lot and adapted. And at the end of the day, you get better every day.
Yeah, for sure. And I really like what you have just said about that part of the culture where you encourage employees to make decisions. Maybe if something goes wrong, then you become more, I guess, risk averse, or you're not afraid to propose things. Because I guess sometimes what the startup culture has that's super encouraging and it's great, not only for young people, but I guess for everyone, that's super fun that not only you see the results of your own work like super easily, I would say, but you're also encouraged to take risks. And if things go wrong, you acquire that mentality. Okay, we have to pivot here and, like go through a different path. And okay, it's part of the learning curve and we go on. So I think that's something that truly makes a difference on the culture of a company. And it's great that you preserve that DNA, I would say.
Yeah, the difficult thing about that part is absolutely correct for outbound teams, marketing operations, even the dev team. However, as a regulated entity for the risk team, the compliance team, they're not driving, at least not when it's not workflow related. Workflows you can try a lot and improve a lot to gain efficiencies. But yeah, just to add this, as a bank or a payment institution, the risk and compliance topic, this is something where one should not try a lot, but to strive to make the most efficient process or to build the
Yeah,
most efficient
of
process.
course, it depends on the area.
Okay. On the department.
Yeah. And then I was going to ask you a bit more about going back to the founding like journey and everything. So you got to this stage after the seed round where you started scaling your product, you got new people on board. Of course, the company like went through a process of scaling fast, I would say. You already had the seed round and you came after, well, other couple of equity rounds, but you decided to fund your company with another option outside of the most traditional way of equity. So I wanted to ask you, how was that thought process for you? How to came to think about debt, and what did the decision look like on the internal team, and was everyone on board, and how was that process overall?
I mean, at that time, we thought a lot about the right financing instruments. If you look at the capital needs, you need to fundraise, first of all, to finance growth or expansion. And on the other side, you also have increasing working capital needs. With growth, you need more working capital. And at amnis, as a payment institution, obviously, you do need working capital to ensure that everything runs smooth. I mean, it's not that different to an industrial company. Also, as a finance company, think about a card program or forward transaction. This blocks some cash, and with growth, it blocks more. So we thought about, hey, we do now this Series B with equity. However, it's a bad idea to finance equity and then use the funds to increase the working capital for blocked cash. So we decided to go for non-dilutive, to look around for a non-dilutive solution to finance working capital, to finance the balance sheet, not to finance investment and expansion related costs. The reason why, from our point of view, was because if we use debt to finance expenses, this makes no sense to me. If you use debt to finance growth-related capital needs on the balance sheet, it makes a lot of sense because you have a price for the debt. You also know how you use these funds and what's the return on the funds. At the end of the day, if you're margin between debt financing and what you get for these funds by using it in the balance sheet or as working capital. And there we were really aligned, all the management members, but also the board of directors. We even have this clear strategy on a board level. Use debt for growth-related capital needs for the balance sheet, working capital, blocked cash, etc. This grows over time. And we use equity for expenses or expansion related investments.
So you were like super conscious about what things you were to use both equity and debt for, like upfront, like that was super clear for you.
Yeah, for us, this was really super clear. And I mean, it's not
Yeah.
only about equity. I mean, if I read in the news, you always read about this Series A, B, the big rounds. But at the end of the day, it should be a mix, in my opinion. And there's nothing bad about equity, but also nothing bad about that.
Yeah, and like going back to the whole conversation, like I think it's super interesting how you were able to combine, like, depending of course on the stage of the company, many ways of making it work. Like you started bootstrapping it, then when the time was right, you decided to uh get equity, and then you combined debt with equity. And I think amnis is a super great example of how you actually have to be super conscious and think about, of course, depending on the growth stage and your goals for the company, but that you can combine things and make it work properly. It's super interesting how you managed to do that.
Yeah, and I mean, it also, as you mentioned, it also depends on the company life cycle and maturity. So it's also kind of natural. You learn a lot, and you get more possibility.
Of course. And now that you have just not, but you have raised your series B, and now you are on to a new phase of the company, like how will amnis look like in the next couple of years? What's your vision for the company? I know you are experiencing a lot of growth and expansion, so I want us to discuss, and yeah, what's your vision as a founder, not only for the product but also from the company inside, like how will the team look like? Will some things change?
Yeah, I mean, the Series B was really kind of the kickoff of our next change because, first of all, we need to ensure it's quite easy to grow from 100,000 to 200,000 by 100%, but it's a different game after the Series B if you grow from 5 to 10 or from 10 to 20 million. So we are really looking for talents also in different areas. And for me, it's kind of a very interesting time because we now, I mean, this is a constant process, not only after fundraising. We are now at a time where we have a lot of possibilities also through AI, but also through optimizing workflows. And so I do think about, if I do think about your question, you asked me about the vision. I mean, a vision for the next 2 years is that amnis gets the number one global banking platform for SMEs. And this is a big one. And what I do see, what helps in this vision is really also AI powered solutions, because our main competitors are traditional banks. And there as a fintech, you have a huge advantage. You have a software platform that is highly scalable, and we do not have any legacy system. So we can build AI powered tools in days instead of of months. And at the end, then it's all about ensuring governance and release feature by feature. So one example, we will release drag and drop payments next week. Think about entering a payment manually. I do think that entering payments manually in 2025 is something weird, and still a lot of companies enter payments manually. So we solved this with a drag and drop solution, including pre-accounting, OCRing, and everything. We even consider discounts that are on invoices, so companies just track the invoice, or conversational banking. This is something for Q at Amnis. Hey, Amnis, buy me $10,000 with value date tomorrow, or hey, Amnis, pay £100,000 to X with text Y. This is pretty close, and it's not a huge thing to build it if you already have the infrastructure. So I do see a lot of opportunities to go fast in the next 2 years, to speed
And
up.
yeah, and I guess something great about the industry is that when you compete against traditional corporations or banks, is that you have one thing that they can never have, that is that you are super fast.
Yeah.
And now with the AI boom, I would say, and how AI is being integrated into products, you can literally develop things and iterate super fast, taking into account the culture and everything. That's, X what these corporations can do, and you have a great advantage there. So that's super great.
Yeah, I do think this is true for all software companies. However, in regulated industries, as a payment institution, the advantage is even bigger, because traditional players cannot keep up with the speed.
Hmm.
Also, sorry for them, because they also do a good job. There, I do see a lot of opportunities for all the companies out there.
And thinking about AI, that was another topic that I wanted to cover. Like which we just discussed about how you're integrated that into the product, but we know it is also changing the way teams work. And like for example, from my standpoint, I tend to work marketing and business part, and things that in the past could have been done with 5 people on one team, one person with a great stack can do what, I don't know, 2 years before 5 people were doing. So how are you adapting to that? And when you hire people, do you think about that? It's something that you are trying to incorporate into your culture, or I don't know, how are you cutting up with speed with that?
Yeah, I mean, we used AI for backend processes since a few years, because in compliance, these AI tools are quite common and also in risk. But we didn't use AI for client-facing features. So customer success was the exception, the chatbot. And to adapt fast now, we have this AI initiative at Amnis. So it's not only about using the GPT, but also about generating ideas on how we could leverage this. And we added a working student pool, 2 to 3 working students that only work on Gen AI topics. From prompting to testing to validating ideas, and to work together with the leadership team, the sales team, the product teams. And this really helps to move things forward.
Yeah, for sure. And that's great because I guess we are all learning on how our jobs and our, companies will look like in the, I wouldn't say the future, because I think a year from now, everything will be changing. And it's great that you have that culture of, incorporating it, and not only on the product, but also on the, I would say, human resources part and the employees of Omnis. So I think that's great. To start closing off the conversation a bit, I want to ask you, what is your main pain point, I would say now, or your struggle now that the company is well, super well, I would say, known, and you have this whole trajectory more than 10 years. But what is Michael's main pain point now as a founder? So yeah.
I mean, one pain point is to hire enough talents for the time being, or the right talents. This is always a challenge and should be a challenge for every startup. Then, I mean, if I think about the business itself, I mean, growing fast enough and in a demanding environment, it is a topic. I mean, we grow with 80% at the moment, which is okay, kind of okay. However, you have investors that are demanding 150%.
Wow.
To balance this and to manage this with the different stakeholders is for sure a challenge. At the end, you find ways. Then, last but not least, awareness. I mean, we are kind of known in Switzerland because you have a lot of SME customers here, but every time you enter a new country, no one knows about you. So you still start from scratch. So currently we're doing pilots in the UK, in the Danish market, and this is always a challenge.
You have
So
to leverage all the skills from the bootstrapping part.
yeah, this is so that's exactly it. Because you get better, but the market also changes. What worked 5 years ago does not work anymore now, and then also the culture. I mean, I really learned a lot when we started in the Czech Republic. Completely different than Switzerland. I mean, we expected that it's different, but it was really, really very different. And so we needed to adapt or to localize also the sales processes and the marketing communication. And this is always a challenge if you're expanding, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
for sure. And you have to understand like a different culture, a different business, even, I don't know, hire people with different cultural backgrounds. Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess it must be one of the main pain points of growing, and I mean, you must be growing fast and you have to get the people on board and the product adapted, and that like time clock thing is a challenge.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So now to close off the interview, I have two questions that are like the two sides of a coin. One, I want to ask you if you could go back to the Michael who was coming out, I would say, of your corporate job, or you were still the finance guy, would you do anything different in your whole entrepreneurial journey? And the second one is, what would you say to that Michael from, I would say, 10 or 12 years ago who was just starting? So, what would you do different, and what piece of advice you would give to him and to other founders? Because people out there might be on that stage and could benefit from that.
I mean, in my opinion, I'll start with the advice. Best advice would be, hey, Mike, please ensure that you have a serial entrepreneur on board because all these growing pains that we just discussed and all these experiences, if someone already went through it, this will speed up things quite a lot. This is kind of invaluable. Then what I would do different, I mean, looking back, you can always say you could do things different. But to be honest, maybe we would not build some parts of the product. We would have the focus would be a bit narrowed, should be a bit narrowed looking back. At the end of the day, all these trial and learn things also helped to get where we are now. So I cannot say that I would do things a lot different, to be honest.
Well, that's great actually. But that's great because everything you have done led to where you are at now. And sometimes people have super clear things that they wish they would have taken into account before, and sometimes things work out perfectly fine. So it's a great answer still, and it's great. Okay, what would you say to other founders, like people who are starting out today with 10 plus years in this industry and building things? Like, what would you say to them?
Yeah, I mean, I would say execution trumps strategy. Because in my opinion, it's more important to execute. Go ahead, and move fast. Of
The
course, you need
velocity.
yeah velocity. Of course, you need a strategy. However, you could have the best strategy if you do not execute. I mean, you will never run a successful business. And I do think that a lot of companies struggle with the execution, not with the strategy. A lot of people have great ideas, really brilliant, but in my opinion, the difference is the execution. If you start executing fast, you will learn faster and adapt the strategy. So my advice is just to execute.
Okay, that's a great piece of advice, because I guess sometimes it's like you get stuck on the ideas and what you think will work, but you never actually get to the test how it will be received on the market, and if your idea is useful, if you're solving a necessity or not. And sometimes, yeah, I feel like people tend to be a bit afraid of making mistakes or of things not working out, when in reality that's what lets you go back and iterate again and execute. So that's a great piece of advice.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so thanks for joining. And it was super great to have you here.
Thanks for having me in your series and wish you a great day.
You
Thanks.
too.
Bye.